Have you ever felt underestimated or ignored by your peers, even though you try everything to prove your worth? Then this story's for you. They laughed at the maid until she wore the crown. In a kingdom completely obsessed with power and status, the most important person wasn't the king, the prince, or any of the nobles scheming in the shadows. No, the person who truly held the kingdom's fate in her hands was someone nobody ever noticed. Her name was Anya, and she was a maid in the castle, a ghost, really, who cleaned up after extravagant parties and served people who never bothered to look at her twice. They saw the smudges on her cheek, but never the fire in her spirit. They would laugh at her worn-out shoes and the quiet way she kept her head down, never once imagining that she was keeping a secret that could save them all. Or she could simply stand back and watch the entire kingdom crumble. This is the story of how the girl everyone looked through became the one person they could never forget. Anya's life was a cycle of exhaustion. She was up before the sun and collapsed into bed long after the last candlelight was extinguished. She served lords and ladies who couldn't be bothered to learn her name, and cleaned up after courtiers who treated her as if she were invisible. Her silent, tireless routine was the perfect backdrop for a kingdom that was quietly falling apart. And make no mistake, the kingdom of Eldoria was dying. The once mighty King Theron was now a shadow of himself, wasting away from a mysterious illness that baffled the royal physicians. The sickness seemed to have seeped into the land itself. A strange blight withered the crops in the fields. The rivers were reducing day by day, and a quiet, desperate fear began to creep through the castle halls. But the court, led by the cruel Lady Seraphina and the cunning Lord Valerius, pretended not to notice, distracting themselves with lavish parties. Their forced, brittle laughter echoed through the halls. The only one who seemed to grasp the severity of it all was the king's son, Prince Alistair. He carried the weight of his kingdom on his shoulders, a constant look of worry etched on his face. Anya tripped, linens flew, stone floor met chaos. She braced for the usual shouting, but instead, a hand reached down to help her. It was Prince Alistair. He met her gaze, and for the first time she saw not pity or annoyance but a shared understanding. "It seems we all carry heavy burdens in this place," he said softly, helping her gather the laundry. It was a small gesture, but for Anya, who lived in the shadows, it felt like a bolt of lightning. It was the first time anyone of royal blood had truly seen her. That single moment of human connection sparked something in her. It's what gave her the courage, days later, to wander into the castle's long-forgotten library during her cleaning duties. Dusty shelf, loose board. She pried it open, curious. Tucked away in the dark space beneath was a small leather-bound journal and a tarnished silver locket. That night, by the flickering light of a stolen candle, Anya opened the journal. The elegant script belonged to Queen Flora, King Theron's first wife, who had died under mysterious circumstances 20 years prior. The official story was a sudden illness, but whispers among the staff had always hinted at something more sinister. As Anya read, it felt as if the late queen was speaking directly to her, sharing a desperate, urgent warning. The journal revealed a staggering truth. The magic that kept Eldoria vibrant and alive wasn't just in the royal bloodline. It was a sacred pact made with the land itself, a pact that had to be renewed each year with a special ritual involving a rare flower called the sun petal, which grew in a hidden grove. This ritual was the kingdom's very life force. But after the queen's death, the arrogant new court had dismissed her traditions as old-fashioned folklore. They hadn't just forgotten a ritual. They had severed the kingdom's lifeline. The land wasn't cursed, it was being starved. With trembling hands, Anya managed to open the locket. Inside, just as she had both hoped and feared, lay the perfectly preserved golden petals of a single sun petal. The queen's secret was now Anya's burden to carry. Knowing the truth wasn't a relief, it was a crushing weight. Every dying plant, every worried face in the village, the king's own fading health, she now understood it was all connected. For the very first time, she saw the kingdom not as a place of masters and servants, but as a single living being that was slowly suffocating. And she was the only one who knew the cure. This new sense of purpose changed her. The timid, invisible maid began to fade. In her place was a woman who walked with her head held high, who met the eyes of those who passed her, and people began to notice. The chief architects of the kingdom's silent decay, Lady Seraphina and Lord Valerius, who were secretly enriching themselves with funds meant to fight the blight, certainly noticed. They saw the light from her room burning late into the night. They saw that Anya, the maid, no longer averted their gaze. One evening, they trapped her in an empty corridor. "You've grown bold, little mouse," Lord Valerius sneered. Seraphina leaned closer, her voice a venomous whisper. "Secrets are much too heavy for a simple maid to carry." They expected her to cower, to apologize, but Anya stood her ground, feeling the late queen's words like armor around her. "The only things of great weight in this castle," she said, her voice steady and clear, "are your greed and your lies." She walked past them, leaving them stunned, now knowing that a confrontation was unavoidable. She had to reach the prince. Anya knew the queen's words alone might not be enough. She needed proof. Dawn broke. She fled, map in hand, into royal woods. After hours of searching, she found it. A hidden grove, lush and green, completely untouched by the blight. And there, a patch of golden flowers glowed with an inner light. The sun petals. She carefully plucked one, feeling a strange, gentle warmth spread through her hand. It was real. Her heart soared with hope as she hurried back. But her relief was short-lived. She turned a corner and ran right into a line of royal guards. Lord Valerius emerged from behind them, a triumphant smirk on his face. "There she is," he announced to the captain. "The thief!" They dragged her to the throne room, where the entire court had been assembled. The ailing king sat slumped on his throne, looking confused, as Lady Seraphina stood beside him, whispering poison into his ear. "We found this hidden in her quarters," Seraphina declared, holding up a brilliant ruby necklace, one of her own, of course. "She has been stealing from the royal treasury." The room erupted in accusations and scorn. The same nobles who had ignored her for years now stared at her with contempt. They laughed at her, at the very idea that a maid could be at the center of anything important. It was a tidal wave of ridicule designed to break her completely. But Anya did not break. As their scorn washed over her, a strange sense of calm settled in her heart. She was done being silent. Ignoring the ridiculous claim about the necklace, she walked straight into the center of the room, her eyes finding Prince Alistair and the king. "Lady Seraphina is right about one thing." Anya's voice cut through the noise, clear and strong. "I am a thief, but I did not steal her necklace. I stole this." She held up the Queen's journal. "I stole it from the library you abandoned, where the truth of this kingdom has been left to gather dust." She told them everything of Queen Flora's warning, of the sacred pact with the land, and of the life-giving ritual they had cast aside. As she read passages from the journal, the late queen's voice seemed to fill the now silent hall. Finally, she held up the glowing sun petal. "This is the proof. The life of this kingdom is not in your coffers. It is in the soil beneath your feet. It requires a leader who will serve it, not one who merely rules it." Prince Alistair stared at the flower, then at the locket Anya wore. He recognized it. It had been his mother's. He saw the same fierce integrity in Anya's eyes that he remembered in his mother's, and he knew, with absolute certainty, that she was telling the truth. "Enough," he commanded the court. He turned to Valerius and Seraphina, whose faces had gone pale with terror. "Your greed has nearly destroyed us all. Seize them." As the guards dragged the disgraced nobles away, the old king slowly rose to his feet, his eyes clearer than they had been in years. He was no longer looking at a maid. He was looking at the woman who had saved his kingdom. "Child," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you have shown us all the meaning of true royalty. Ask for anything, and it shall be yours. A title, lands, wealth. It is all yours for the taking." A profound silence fell upon the court. Everyone waited, expecting the fairy tale ending where the maid asks for the prince's hand and a crown of her own. But Anya simply shook her head. "Thank you, your majesty," she said softly. "But you cannot give me what I have already earned, and a title will not heal what is broken." She looked from the king to the prince. "The Queen's journal teaches that true authority comes from service. It doesn't belong to one person by birthright. It belongs to anyone willing to nurture the kingdom. I do not want a crown of gold. I want to put my hands in the soil and help bring this land back to life." She proposed that they revive the ancient ritual, not as a secret royal ceremony, but as a public celebration led by a council of the people, farmers, artisans, and servants, working alongside the royal family. Deeply moved, Prince Alistair agreed at once. He announced that Anya would lead this new council, her position granted not by blood, but by her courage and wisdom. She didn't just find a place in their world, she created a new one. The last time the people of Eldoria saw her, she wasn't wearing a gown or a tiara. She was dressed in simple clothes, walking through the slowly greening fields beside Prince Alistair. Her hands were in the dirt, working with the farmers and teaching them how to cultivate the sun petals. The laughter that had once been used to mock her was replaced by the sounds of a kingdom joyfully working together, healing itself. The maid they all laughed at never wore the crown. She became something far greater. She became the kingdom's heartbeat. Anya's story is a powerful reminder that you don't need a title to have an impact. True strength comes from your character, and your voice has the power to change the world, even when it feels like no one is listening. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded of their own inner strength.